As she left the courtroom, she could hear the excited voices of her husband and his young mistress. The wife, in a moment of forgetfulness, took the jacket of her husband's mistress from the wardrobe. But when she reached into her pocket, she found a note that left her reeling with surprise. I left the courtroom holding the papers, which were my last chance at justice, but they also made it clear that I had lost. My ex-husband's playful laugh echoed in my mind, like a sharp poke through my feelings. He and his new crush, the same young woman he said was impossible to resist, did not miss the chance to once again enjoy my confusion, and I felt a warm sense of understanding wash over me. I had trusted this man once, and I had hoped for him, but now I found myself standing on the cold marble floor of the courtyard next to the table where the names of the next plaintiffs and defendants were written. I felt like I couldn't even answer their sharp remarks. It's always a shame when a 6-year period of family life doesn't go as planned. I told myself to be patient a little longer, tried to find compromises, and believed that we would have a common home, children, and that we would cope with the usual problems. But I saw how he changed plans without me, cancelled our arrangements, and then how he got a loyal friend named Varia, or Valia, or Vika. I'm sorry, but I don't care what her name is. As I came to understand this, he was already making decisions that would shape my future. He filed for divorce first. He made me feel so bad in court that I even felt guilty for things I didn't do. I was very close to losing it, and I might have done something silly in the heat of the moment. But luckily, I just passed out from exhaustion. In front of the judge, I felt like I just couldn't do it anymore. I stopped fighting it, and I let myself be there. My husband's lawyer really stood out to me because they seemed so confident and prepared. I, on the other hand, was a bit more nervous and less prepared. What could it be? My representative, a casual acquaintance of a lawyer from a semi-closed firm, Naverno. I didn't even try too hard, but I'm sure they'll do their best for you. Ultimately, the court's decision left me with only a few small pieces of my rights. My ex-husband smiled broadly when the judge announced the main points. He came out of the hall close behind me, followed by his young mistress, and said something a bit cutting to me. He even added a sarcastic comment about merit. I'm having a bit of a rough time right now. I had a clear sense of direction, but now I'm not quite sure where to go, to the wardrobe, to the street, home, or what to do next. All my plans have been set aside for now. I'm happy to say that I was able to pick up my things automatically. There's a bit of a stir in the cloakroom. People are always in a rush these days. The cloakroom attendant was surprised. I gently placed a paper tag on her and carefully took my jacket out of the bottle. It looked just like mine. The color and shape were a perfect match, a deep, dark blue, with a hood and pockets that were just a little bit askew. But then I heard my sweet husband and his beloved pausing at the far door, apparently having a good laugh with someone about me again. I'm sure they had a good laugh when they talked about how I'd become quite the outsider in court. I was at my wit's end, so I ran for the exit. I wanted to disappear so I wouldn't have to meet their eyes. Finally, I was out on the street, where I felt a nice, cool breeze and a drizzle fell on top of it. In hindsight, I realized that I had taken a different path than the one I'd originally intended. But that's okay. I'm just trying to find a way to get away from these taunts. I turn a corner, run away, or hide. But nothing seems to work. The people on the steps here are watching with concern, not knowing what's going on. I know it's just me, but there's something really soothing about the sound of rain. Let the drops of rain gently fall onto the asphalt, and let them gently caress the strands of hair that have become loose from a careless knot. Hey, I totally get it, Standing there and feeling like the last loser under the otar can be tough. But, you know, it's always good to remember that there are new enemies and young winners out there. I suddenly noticed that the jacket I grabbed so quickly is a bit too tight around my shoulders, and the sleeves feel a tad shorter than I remember. There's a unique scent wafting through the air, quite different from the perfume I used to wear on my own jacket. I felt the fabric just for a second and realized, I'm not really into it. The model is similar, but not exactly the same. How did this happen? It seems the wardrobe got mixed up somehow. Oh, it was such a mess. I was so tempted to throw my jacket on the ground, but then I remembered that the weather was wet and I still had some documents in my bag. I was really hoping not to get everything wet. Oh, absolutely. I truly believe that, thanks to fate, I was in such a state of distress in court that I lost it and started laughing. I was also left without my own clothes. Oh, maybe this is the jacket of the same mistress. I always get the worst luck. It's a very real thing. She was also wearing a blue quilted jacket, which made her look so lovely and cozy. I'm not sure what to expect. Lord, I might either cry or laugh. I decided to have a little look in my pocket, hoping to find a tag or something that would help me return the item to its rightful owner. She reached into her pocket, and what did she find? A folded piece of paper. She carefully took it out, and what did it look like? It was a crumpled piece of paper that looked like it had been torn out of a notebook. She read it, and her face brightened. Please make sure that she doesn't challenge the property. I'm sure we can make it look like an accident. Don't worry, there's still plenty of time. The deadline is only 2 weeks away. I promised to pay the remaining amount after the final liquidation. My fingers were so cold that I accidentally dropped the paper on the ground. My head spun for a moment. My heart was beating really fast, like I had run a really long distance. I had a thought, and it came on strong. Is this about me? Do they want to? Oh, honey, I know it doesn't make sense, but I sat down, took a deep breath, and picked up the paper. My hand was shaking as I put it in my bag. I looked around, feeling a bit scared. People passing by might wonder who's inside the store or what everyone's up to. It's okay, they're just seeing things the way they are. There's no need to get upset over it. And for me, my world suddenly turned upside down. The lines on this scrap of paper, written with a pen in a clumsy hand, were essentially a sentence. I'm afraid they're going to eliminate me, so I won't be able to challenge anything. I'm wondering who this is, and what the reason might be. I can't help but start thinking of all the possibilities right away. This girl, her husband's mistress, is a natural. She's been doing this for years, and she's got it down. I'm sure she's been feeding his hatred for me. I'm wondering if they secretly decided it would be easier to destroy me than to divide my property according to the law. I kept going down the street, almost stumbling, and tried a few times to tell myself, this might not be about me at all. It was just a silly coincidence. I was just wondering, what if my last name was mentioned somewhere? Perhaps my husband, or even someone else, thought that it would be easier to get rid of me if I went all the way, made a fuss, or stirred up a scandal. I felt my heart sink at the thought. I was a little surprised at first, but I soon found my breath again. I found the perfect little nook in the courtyard, nestled against the wall, and took a moment to reread the note. I gently took that piece of paper back out and saw that she didn't have to worry about applying for housing and finances, as long as she could use connections, liquidate on time, and keep my name out of it. Everything would be just fine. The amount was also a nice, round number. After making sure everything was clear, I felt a shudder run through me. I really thought my husband was just trying to kick me out of the apartment so he could be in charge of my life. I thought we were creating a cell together, but now I'm afraid I'll have to stay on the street. But here, the situation is different. This already looks like an order. I'm wondering if he might be capable of something more serious than that. But at the trial, he said some not so nice things about me, calling me immoral and crazy. He could have caused a lot of people to turn against me, and that would have been really hard for me. I understand that my sudden disappearance might be a bit surprising, but I'm doing okay. Oh, I think that's exactly what they're planning. I started to feel a bit overwhelmed, and my breath caught and trailed off. I couldn't stop playing with the lock on that unique jacket. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Since it belongs to the mistress, it's only natural to assume that the piece of paper belongs to her as well. I'm so glad I could help. Here's the answer. I remembered her eyes, which sometimes had a strange coldness in them, but I remembered them fondly. I had a hunch that behind my sweet, angelic exterior was a tough character, and when I combined that with my own softness, it might have overwhelmed my husband. I'm wondering if it would be better to run to the police now, but I don't even have proof that this is what the note is about. I'm not sure if you know, but I don't have a last name. I can't help but imagine a warm smile spreading across my face as I look at the law enforcement officer. My dear little citizen, you never know what you might read. I'm a little scared, myself. You don't need to go back to the court's cloakroom to get a change of clothes anymore. And besides, if this girl finds out that I got the thing with her secret, maybe her plan will speed up. I'm going to do my best to make the right choice. I'm happy to say that I didn't let myself give up. My dear childhood friend Veronica always told me, when things get tough, it's important to look for any weak spots in your opponent. I really tried not to call my husband an enemy, but I've come to see that as the only way to describe our relationship. It seems like he and his mistress are more focused on their own relationship than on helping me out. It's like they're trying to do me a favor, but I'm not sure it's the best approach. We'll have to look for evidence of their conspiracy, or at least defend ourselves. But I'm sure we can do it. I gave Veronica a call, doing my best to keep my voice calm and steady. I let her know that I didn't do so well on the court, and I really needed to meet with her soon. She was surprised, but was happy to come to the coffee shop near our house in a couple of hours. I chatted for a while about how crazy busy I've been lately, but when I noticed how surprised I looked, I quickly took a breather. When I got there, the place was just as I'd imagined, a simple, cozy spot with the sweet smell of fresh pastries wafting through the air. Nika was already there, sitting at the table with 2 cups of tea, ready to chat. I was having such a hard time swallowing anything. My stomach felt like a lump. "Tell me, what happened? What's wrong?" she asked gently, noticing my tired face and puffy eyes. "The trial?" "Yes. Please tell me all about it." I did my best to explain everything to her, even though I was struggling to catch my breath. In the end, I took the paper out of my bag and let her take a look. Nikki's eyes got really big, too. She held the paper so tightly in her hands, as if it were a precious treasure that might disappear at any moment. Then, in a soft and intimate tone, she shared her thoughts with me. "Oh my goodness. That's terrible. We're not going to just sit around and wait. The police might not seem to be able to help you, but don't worry. You can always talk to a lawyer or a friend and see if they can help you out. It's possible that your husband's mistress is feeling a little too confident. Maybe we should?" She paused, thinking about what she could do. I gently mentioned that I wasn't sure where to go from there. "I know it can be hard to believe, but if you believe these lines, The operation can happen at any moment. I know it sounds a bit paranoid, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that the words must have looked like an accident. That would explain everything. I'm just a little worried that I could be pushed under a car, set on fire, or poisoned, and no one would ever suspect it was murder. And the husband will just shrug his shoulders, like he's saying, "Oh, no problem. We were having a hard time understanding each other, but I really didn't want to hurt her." I understand where you're coming from, but I'm afraid it's impossible to prove anything at this point. We should definitely make copies, Nico said with a warm smile. If you feel comfortable doing so, please take a picture or send it to someone you trust. If there's a place you can hide, go for it. We'll start moving right away. I have a friend who, he's a bit of a behind-the-scenes kind of person when it comes to private investigations. He'd be happy to help you check the background of this young lady and her contacts, and he'd be glad to do it for a small fee. I held onto my friend's arm for dear life, even though my pulse was still racing. I felt so warm and grateful to have someone by my side. We decided that today I'd send her the photo notes, and then I'd head to the bathroom. Go to your own aunt in the country. Aunt Galina has her own little house, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Oh, you know, she once told me, if you ever need a place to escape to, I'm always here for you. Absolutely. We're going to take a few days to rest and regroup, and then we'll figure out what to do next. That same evening, I thoughtfully packed a small suitcase and gathered a few things to keep me comfortable. I made sure everything was tucked away so as not to attract any attention, then turned off my phone. With a gentle touch, I drove to the bus station, letting the familiar journey take me to the next step on my path. I was so scared. Out of the blue, I had this feeling like someone was watching me. It was as if they already knew that I understood the secret of the impending attempt. It was comforting to imagine leaving that nest. On the bus, I couldn't help but feel a bit curious and kept looking around. The passengers are a lovely mix of older women, teenagers with disabilities, and children with disabilities. There are a couple of some residents with gear, and everyone is getting along well. No one looks like a hitman. I did my best to relax and took in the beautiful scenery outside the window. We drove out of the city and into the beautiful countryside, where the grassy meadows and rolling hills stretched as far as the eye could see. We passed through the suburbs, and although the townspeople were busy with their daily routines, the scenery was soothing and relaxing. And now, as the sun set, the dark highway wound its way through the sparse rows of trees, casting a tranquil, mysterious glow on the landscape. When I got to my aunt's, I started to feel a little calmer. She gave me a big hug, didn't ask me anything, just looked at my tear-stained face and shook her head. "Oh, they're such a sweetheart. I couldn't sleep at all last night, and I'm sure I'm not the only one." I was so tired that I finally fell asleep. But then I had a nightmare. I'm just walking down an alley, and I can feel someone following me. I'm just minding my own business when someone suddenly reaches out and shoves me into the road, right as a car is speeding by. I had a bad dream, and it made me sweat. In the morning, my sweet aunt gave me some milk and honey to drink. She said it would help me feel more at ease and asked me what had happened. I gave a quick rundown, but I held back on going into the nitty-gritty of the liquidation note. I was worried that she might get scared again, or that she might think I was being overly imaginative. I just said that I was a little worried about my husband and his new girlfriend, and that I felt like something wasn't quite right. I think it's best if I just take a step back for now. With a kind smile, she nodded her head and offered to stay with us until the divorce was finalized. The next day, Veronica gave me a call. I really wanted to keep my old number private, So I bought a different SIM card just for that. My friend told me that her friend is a private investigator who is, in principle, ready to take on the case. She said that you need an advance and some leads, though. Nika, please tell me exactly what you need to find, he said with a warm smile. I asked her to find out where this woman, her husband's mistress, came from and if she had been involved in similar stories before. She found herself wondering if she had ever done this to someone else before. While the detective looked over her biography, I hung out with my aunt and helped her out in the garden. I made it seem like I was busy with work so that I couldn't start thinking that my death might be planned at any moment. But you know what? The brain just can't seem to forget. I jotted down a few things: the police, the court, a press conference, and maybe even a flight out of the country. It all sounded absolutely fantastic, and also a little creepy. On the fifth day, a friend reached out to me with some exciting news. The detectives got something. It seems that her husband's mistress had a bit of an unusual past. She had already been in relationships with wealthy men twice, and both times, sadly, things didn't work out. Oh, dear. First a big scandal, and then the unexpected disappearance of one of the partners. Thankfully, after some time had passed, the man was found safe and sound outside, though he didn't say much. It's with great sadness that I have to tell you that the second one died in an accident. It's a bit of a mysterious picture, with no words, but there's a faint scent of smoke. It's possible that she's just following the typical story arc, where the victim gets caught up in a scam and then everything gets cleared up. My dearest wives, our dearest competitors, our dearest creditors, and everyone in between. I felt a chill run down my spine when I heard that. Even so, these words still have a lot of meaning. They're not just empty words on a piece of paper. And what if, for whatever reason, the husband is already in the share? We got to know him really well. We lived with him for over a year. He's the kind of guy who thinks with his heart. It's hard to be caring, but after the arrival of this young predator in his life, he became a completely different person. I really wanted to find a solution, so I asked my friend if he knew of a lawyer who could tell me whether I should file a life-threatening report with the police. We were both aware that there wasn't a lot of direct evidence, but that didn't stop us from trying our best to understand the situation. It's just a piece of paper, and it doesn't have a signature or last name or any other details. There aren't any witnesses, which is really unfortunate. It's not clear where he was when he was wearing someone else's jacket. I'm worried that they might think I forged it myself, just as a little joke to my ex-husband. Then the lawyer, who Nikki said was reliable, offered to help. He said he would do a little provocation, take a picture of the note, and suggest to my husband that I might have some information that could help. They say that if he takes a bite and starts making excuses or getting upset, it'll be a sign that the liquidation plan is for real. I was scared, but I knew that if I didn't stand up for myself, I might lose my life. Aunt Galina was a little worried when she found out that I was planning to come back to the city. My dear, I'm sorry to say it, but there is a chance that this could be dangerous. I'm sure you're wondering what would happen if someone tried to kill you. I just gave a little shrug. While I was thinking about it, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up the phone and heard my sweet husband's voice, and it was like no time at all had passed. He greeted her warmly, saying, "Hello. I've been trying to find you. Where have you been? I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may. Let's talk about our differences in a way that's friendly and constructive, without having to go to court. I'm worried that you're making things more complicated than they need to be. I'd be happy to offer you some money, my friend, if you'll just agree not to challenge me. We should really meet sometime soon. I felt a bit uneasy. I'm happy to share the confirmation with you. He thought it would be better to not bring the case to new legal proceedings, which might take a while, because he really wants to buy my peace of mind. He's hoping that I'll fall for his trap. And then I realized that, since he was calling me, he probably wouldn't be calling again. He doesn't know that I have the note in my hand. I'm wondering if my mistress had time to realize that her item was mistakenly found in my possession. I'm not sure. After all, she'd run out to get him that day, and the jacket had been left in a wardrobe. They'd just left, but they'd be back soon to take care of it. Let's say, I said, trying not to sound shaky. Where do you want to meet? He suggested our old favorite restaurant, where we used to celebrate anniversaries, and I was so happy to go back there. It's a symbol that can be a little scary. I heard him say something that made me think he had someone on his side, but I didn't pay much attention at the time. I'm sure I could prepare myself, take someone with me, and get information or at least a reaction out of them, even if it's a restaurant. When I shared the plan with Veronica, she immediately rejected the idea of going alone, which I could understand. Oh, my goodness. He might accidentally put poison in your drink, or his friends might not want you to leave. A detective can stand outside, but that doesn't guarantee safety. We talked about how, even though this is a public place, there's still less risk than in some empty garages. I know it's hard, but you can't relax just yet. The day of the meeting finally arrived. I decided to wear my comfiest clothes and shoes, and I chose a table with a good view so that I could escape in case of anything. I arrived early, settled in, and turned off my phone. My heart was beating so strongly that I was afraid the waiter would overhear. The women at nearby tables were chatting in low voices. A man who had perhaps had a little too much to drink was laughing quite a bit. I'm so glad someone took pictures of everything. They were taken on a smartphone. About 15 minutes later, my sweet husband came in, saw me, and smiled. His eyes were cold, but they also had a confidence about them. He sat down across from her and gently unbuttoned his jacket. In a soft, almost shy voice, he said, "Well, I'm so glad you came. I'm counting on you, my friend. I know you'll be sensible and not want years of war." I gave him a little nod of acknowledgement. The kind of nod that says, "I'm here and I'm listening." He immediately started talking about how he's ready to make certain concessions. He said he'd be willing to give me a certain amount so that I can get behind and not demand a share in real estate. You mentioned it, and I totally get where you're coming from. I know these trials are a lot to handle, and I'm here to support you. I understand it can be frustrating, but I'm here to help you stay strong and keep your cool. I would really appreciate it if you could take $700,000 in cash and leave without any drama. I really feel like I'm missing out. I should have received a third of the property, but I'm only getting $700,000. I let him know that I was just pretending to think, and I looked him straight in the eye as I said, "Yes, I may agree, but first tell me, what happens if I don't agree? Have you been thinking about how you're going to end me?" He gently settled back in his chair. "I'm sorry, but I'm having a hard time understanding what you mean. Why would I end up with you? I'd really appreciate it if you could find a way to step back from our relationship, even if you're in another city." I was thinking, what if I found a note in someone else's jacket about accidents and liquidations? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, my friend. When he read the note, he seemed a little surprised, and he quickly tried to hide it. He said, "They say it's a silly thing, and let's be real." His eyes showed a little fear, but only a little. "Honey, let's not go crazy here," he said gently. "Hey, If you have any concerns at all, just let us know. We're here to help and can sort things out. I promise I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I totally get it, but maybe someone next to you was planning to, I clarified. At that moment, he stopped for a second, and his eyes shifted to the side. And then I realized that he might not be the customer, but he's just going along with the mistress's plan, stirring up a feud with me. I know, it's just so hard. He didn't stop her because he thought she was going to do something really bad to me. I felt a surge of resentment well up inside me. We talked for a long time, and it was so nice to connect with her. He was so kind and generous, always offering money and never asking for anything in return. I would appreciate it if you could please keep his new love life private. He wrote about the note, too. I'm sure there's just some kind of misunderstanding here. Honey, I'm here with you. You're just hallucinating. I couldn't help but notice the little twitch in his neck and how he tried to hide his irritation. He knew that I was just the kind of person who could make a scene right here in the restaurant. I've seen him looking out into the hall a few times, like he's waiting for someone else to arrive. It looks like the mistress wasn't there, poor thing. It's possible that she was left out. And that's okay. At last, I said, all right, let's do this together. I'll definitely think about it, but I'd like to make sure I'm comfortable with the idea before I accept the money. If I'm not, I'll go to the police and give them something for examination. I gave a nod of affirmation, trying to show that I was talking about the piece of paper. He gave a warm smile and said, I'm not sure. Rest assured, you'll be just fine. We are not barbarians, but we are people who have enough of what they need. I have to say, I'm kind of amazed by how your fantasy played out. But you could see that he was nervous, and his hand was shaking a bit. That's where our paths diverged. He went to the counter and paid the bill, and then he was on his way. Then we went outside together, and it was just the two of us under the warm, sunny sky. The rain had stopped, and the sun was shining brightly in the sky, creating a warm, yellow glow. I asked a taxi to take me home so my husband wouldn't have to, and I saw in the mirror that he stood there for a few more minutes. He was typing on his phone with a sullen expression. He was probably just letting her know that I was aware. After this meeting, I felt a new kind of sadness come over me. I'm in their hands now, and I'm in good hands. I'm worried that they might think I'm a danger. They might try to remove me before I get to the police. I hurried home, or rather, to my friend's apartment. She went on vacation and was kind enough to agree to borrow a house. I was a little nervous, but I dialed Veronica's number with her name on it. I told her what we had talked about. Nothing, Nika said with a gentle smile. We're going to reach out to your lawyer to see if they can offer some guidance. I think we should let the authorities know what we know and warn them, just to be on the safe side. Then they might feel like they can't be themselves. The lawyer explained that, sadly, we don't have any evidence to support our claims. I know the leaflet itself seems a bit suspicious, but don't worry about the lack of last name. Let's confirm it together. I know it's not easy to figure out in court that love for my husband led a certain woman to order a murder, but I'm here to support you. Absolutely, you can file a report. But if the criminals are smart enough, they might try to cover their tracks, which could make it seem like I'm losing it. The next night, I felt really bad because I realized that I hadn't taken a picture of my husband's reaction, and I hadn't recorded it. Later, when I was still a little drowsy, I decided to take a small technical espionage step. I recently bought a miniature voice recorder, and I was so excited to try it out. I decided to try it with my husband on the phone to record a new conversation. He spoke with care, using short, careful sentences, and didn't give anything away directly. At the end, he simply said, "Well, you know, I totally get it. In our situation, it's easier for you to just disappear than to continue the scandal and then hang up." A voice recorder is a tiny device that feels almost weightless. I always made sure to bring it with me wherever I went. I was worried that one day I might be caught on the street. I imagined myself gazing into the eyes of my mistress, which seemed empty and devoid of emotion. I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness, knowing that she wouldn't be able to sympathize with my struggles or show any remorse. I was in a state of anxious anticipation, waiting for a trick to happen. I found myself unable to eat or sleep, as my mind was consumed with the anticipation of what was to come. I'll be honest, the only thing that kept me going was the thought of Nika out there somewhere, and that there was a detective who could help. But is this really the case? It's been a couple of weeks now, and things are pretty much the same as they were then. I was still living out of my suitcase and finding refuge in other people's spaces. I was once contacted by a woman who I hadn't met before. She introduced herself as a notary, and she asked me about my plans for an apartment. I smelled it right away, and I was a little embarrassed. I said I didn't know what it was about, and then I hung up. It's possible that those people just wanted to get me to open up. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from my husband. "I'm so glad to tell you that his friend says she's willing to talk to you directly. I'm sure you can work out the terms and get rid of the mutual claims." "I'm sorry, but I just don't have the energy to be an intermediary anymore." I couldn't help but laugh. I'm not going to point any fingers at her directly, even though she might be a customer of the liquidation. I thought to myself, if I don't at least try, I'll miss my chance to gather more evidence or make them see reason. We decided to meet up in a cozy little cafe that's a bit off the beaten path, so it would be nice and quiet. Absolutely. I let our detective friend know the time and place ahead of time and asked him to wait for the lighter in the car. I'm always a little concerned if I'm not there at the appointed time. I just hope that everything is okay. I also took a tape recorder and hid it under a layer of clothes, just in case. I'm sitting here at a table by the window, and the view through the cracks in the glass is a bit distorted. I'm watching the rain drizzle into a puddle, and I'm thinking about how lovely it is. It's been 15 minutes, and she's already gone. All of a sudden, a beautiful naked woman with her hair uncovered comes in. She gently dabs at her eyes with a light handkerchief and glides her gaze around the room. That's her. I saw her for just a moment at the courthouse. I'm so glad I got a better look now. Her nose is delicate, her cheekbones are sharp, her lips are slightly curved, and her eyes are narrowed. When he sees me, he comes over and sits down next to me, and he doesn't even ask if it's okay. "Good afternoon," I say, smiling warmly. "Yes," he says, his voice warm and reassuring. The voice is cold, straight to the point, but always with a kind and friendly face. "What's going on, sweetie?" I take a deep breath and let it out slowly, gently, with care. "You wanted to talk to me, and I'm always here for you." "I'm really not sure why you decided to get involved with my family. I'm not quite sure what you're hoping to get out of this other than a divorce." She smiles in a slightly strange way as she watches my reaction. "I don't need any shows, you know. Your husband is looking forward to a new life, and I'm so excited to be a part of that with him. We totally understand if you'd rather not claim his property." "I totally understand. You didn't share it because you felt it would be better that way." "Right. Don't worry. The court's decision isn't final yet. I know you're a great person who would never want to challenge me, and I'd hate to think you'd try. It would be really great if you could take the money, as he suggested, and just go. Otherwise, I ask almost automatically. Otherwise. She pauses for a moment, as if thinking, and then politely pulls up the tea she brought for the waiters. You know, there are tragedies. You know how it is. You're just going about your day, and then bam, there's an accident on the road or something happens to the house, like a gas leak. Creepy stories. I feel like my breath is caught in my throat. She feels very comfortable talking about the possibility of an accidental death. I'm sure he doesn't mean to imply that I can't prove it. Oh, she doesn't come right out and say it, but the hint is there for all to see. Oh, my goodness. You're actually threatening to kill me? I gently squeeze out. She gives me a warm smile and gently shakes her head as she looks down into my coffee cup. I just want to say that everything happens in life, and that's okay. I know you're a reasonable person, and I'm sure everything will go smoothly. Hey, I totally get it, but maybe try not to take on the role of the heroine this time. Your husband really wants to get a divorce in a way that's not too public. I'm curious, what do you need it for? All you need is a little money to live comfortably. My hand curls into a little fist under the table, but I try to stay calm and say, hey, let's just say I don't agree for now. Let me tell you something. I have something that could potentially be bad for you. Hey, I was just wondering. Does anything remind you of that? She shudders. His gaze grows colder. What are you talking about? I was wondering about that piece of paper. I can't help but smile. I was delighted to discover such thought-provoking content tucked away in someone else's jacket. I'm always here to help, and I can take it to the police if I want to. Now she's showing her feelings more openly. You say it's the police, but what can you prove to them? I'm so glad you mentioned the paper was in my jacket. It's a bit funny, isn't it? I know it's hard, but there are no signatures or dates on this. They're going to think you made it up yourself. They're going to think you're just some wife who was left behind. Who would believe you? I'm in a good place, and I'm here to help. I've got some connections and money. I understand that your ex may not be open to listening, but they might be willing to walk away. I'm sure you're wondering if I'm stalking you. Well, I can assure you that's not the case. I understand that it's very dangerous to keep going, but I was really angry on the inside. She's actually totally open with me about how she'd be willing to do whatever it takes to silence me completely. I pause for a moment to catch my breath. I decided to click. Hey, I'm not just a shadow, and I'm not afraid of people like you. I might not have as much money or connections as you, but if something were to happen to me, my friends would have a copy of this note and an email with my comments. They'll be sure to take everything to the investigative committee, and I know they'll do their best to help. Your bestie is going to be right in the middle of this crime story, and we're all rooting for them. I'm worried that he might not like it. I'm a little confused, but I'm sure we can figure it out together. Absolutely. I've got a friend, a lawyer, and a detective on my team, but they're working with some constraints. I totally get it. Sometimes a person just doesn't want to go into labor, and that's totally okay. The mistress presses her lips together, momentarily losing control of herself. Her eyes flashed with anger, but then she stopped, gathered herself, and pushed her cup away with a smile. All right, let's just agree to disagree for the moment. Shall we? We're going to increase the amount, and we're really excited about it. You'll have something to live on. I'm so glad to hear that your sweet home will remain with us. If you'd rather not have anyone touch you, maybe it would be better to stop talking about paper. Once you've registered, you'll be on your way. The city is quite large, and it's possible to rent an apartment here. However, we haven't heard back from anyone yet. I'm sure we all want to avoid a tragedy on the road, right? Yes, I say wryly. She doesn't say a word. She just stands up, kindly nods to the waiter, tosses the bill on the table, and leaves. I'm so sorry, but I can't move for a few more minutes. Then I realized that I need to share this detective with you, my dear friend, as soon as possible. He was taking notes. I'm on a dictaphone, at least. I was so happy to find that my hidden voice recorder was working. I'm so sorry, but there's a recording of voices. Though unfortunately no names. I think that's a really good point. And so, a new chapter in the journey began. I often got a message from my husband where he'd repeat himself in a slightly irritated way. Hey, why not let you decide for once? Go ahead and take the money, and then we'll get those papers signed. I tried every excuse I could think of to buy some more time. I was hoping to find a moment to record his speech one more time. He was careful, bless him, and gave hints, and the mistress would often retreat into the shadows, as if she was trying to hide. I started keeping an eye out for anyone who might seem a bit unusual on the streets. Boilers. I'm worried they might come after me. In the meantime, our lawyer said that we've already got plenty of material to at least get the ball rolling on an investigation by the police. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but there's a recording of a conversation with a mistress. It's really upsetting, because even though the direct threats don't have names, we can still identify the voice. I'm concerned about the note itself, and her husband's behavior. We went together to one of the Interior Ministry departments and submitted a corresponding application. We were gently reminded that all verbal guesses should be checked by an expert examination, and so on. But the lawyer, who was very kind, said something about corruption. We're so happy to let you know that, as a result, we were accepted. They said they'd be happy to take a look at the documents. I'm sorry to say that another week went by with a lot of tension. I was really worried about what my lover and husband would do when they found out I'd gone to the police. I just hoped they would act even faster. I kept telling myself, they'll figure it out. My friend did her best to keep me company, but she has a lot on her plate with her job and family. She couldn't stay with me forever. And that's okay. The detective said that it might be a good idea to lead them to a specific attempt, but he also said that it was too dangerous. I was a little hesitant to take a step into the entrance without looking back, and yet, my patience was tested a bit when I accidentally saw near a familiar store where I decided to buy. Perhaps this mistress herself was with some suspicious people. They stood just to the side from each other, sharing a few quick words, and then she nodded, and they went on their way, each on their own path. They looked far from office-like, but that's okay. Their faces show a bit of sadness. Their clothes are simple. Their figures are strong. And they may be hired performers. I didn't move any closer, but I did blend in with the crowd. Then, I hurried back to the house, my knees shaking with fear. I'm not sure I can do it one-on-one. I reached out to my lawyer for support. I would really appreciate it if you could make sure I'm protected or something like that. He explained that, in the event of a real threat, state protection is officially required. However, at this time, there is not enough evidence to do so. Even so, after I met him, a really nice security guard who used to work for a company offered to go with me for a small fee. He lived nearby, which was really helpful. He checked to see if there was any surveillance. It was a little calmer now that he was here, which was a relief. But the fear didn't go away. 2 days later, my husband called me, sounding a little upset. I'm so sorry you had to go to the police, and I'm wondering why you did. I'm sure you'll agree that this will only make things worse. It would be better in a good way. I replied, I understand, but since there's no contract, we'll have to decide everything according to the law. He swore and hung up. That same evening, Our detective told me that the mistress had gone on a business trip somewhere, but he didn't know exactly where. I started to shake. She was so happy to know that she wasn't alone in this. There were still people who were ready to see it through with her. It's really too bad. But the police were slow to check. I'm reaching out because I've been trying to get in touch with them, and I haven't heard back yet. I would love to know more. I felt a bit overwhelmed, and I even started thinking about moving to another city, changing my passport, and starting a new life under a different name. I totally get that this was an indefinite escape, and that's why I had to give up everything I had built for so many years and live a life like a criminal. She really hoped that she could gently encourage her husband to consider taking more concrete steps to turn them over to the police. And wouldn't you know it, this opportunity came out of the blue. I got a call from his lawyer, who I'd had a bit of a tiff with in court, asking me to come to a settlement meeting. He said it was supposed to be a notary-attended meeting. I promised that my husband would agree to officially give me a part of the property, and I'm really hoping he'll do it. I really wish I could take back the police report and admit some of the things I said in court. It certainly did look a bit fishy. I decided to go, taking the security guard with me as a companion. I asked him to wait in the car while I took the dictaphone with me. We agreed that the lawyer would also be prepared to call the police if I didn't come out at the appointed time, which I really appreciated. When I went into the office and saw that my husband was there by himself, without a notary or a lawyer, I could tell right away that something wasn't quite right. He said the notary would be there later, but for now, let's talk in private. The doors clicked shut, and it was time to go home. I felt a surge of panic, but I decided that I would have to go all the way. "Please, have a seat," he said kindly, gesturing towards a chair by the table. I sat up, still holding my bag. "Well," I said, trying my best to sound as confident as I could. "Hey, could you tell me where your notary is?" My husband paused for a moment, as if he was trying to gather his thoughts. He's a bit hesitant, afraid of being overlooked, and we need to decide everything ourselves. "Hey, no worries. You just stop your activity, withdraw your application, and I'll give you the money. I'm so excited to share my document with you." He gently placed a piece of paper in my hands, suggesting that if I could kindly leave the city within 24 hours and relinquish all claims, it would be best for all. I gently bit my lip, and if I didn't agree, he gave me a look that said he wasn't happy about it. Then, "I'm afraid things might get a little rough." "Hey, I just want to let you know that some people might be feeling a bit bothered by your presence. If you can keep your cool, they'll probably understand." "I totally understand. I hate it as much as you do, and I wish I could help, but I can't get anything back." "I'm not sure what to do because I can't get anything back. I'm wondering if it's our marriage or my life. I just had to have it." He showed some uncertainty, and then said in a kind voice, "I'm not sure. I would have preferred not to bring it up, but she really encouraged me to share my thoughts. She has connections. They're so good at cleaning. They make sure to do everything nice and neat." "I'm sorry, but I think this is your fault. I really didn't want to just leave, because I love this place so much." My breath caught in my throat. It's important to understand that this is actually an admission that he consented to the assassination attempt, although he does not explicitly acknowledge the order. I switched on the recorder, and I'm so glad to say that everything is written down. I did my best to buy some extra time. "I totally get it. You're waiting for them to remove me, and I appreciate that." He let out a big sigh, clearly feeling bad about something. "I'm not trying to be mean, but I know you're not meant to be here. Then we can all live in peace, and she can have your piece of inheritance and an apartment." "Hey, just a heads up. We've reset all the masks. He said that they had a plan to take my share. And he was okay with me leaving. Okay, I say, trying not to sound angry or horrified. How much are you offering? 500,000. I'm really struggling right now. I'm already in debt. He saw the corner of my mouth twitch. Oh, you're so right, Elijah. I did my best to think clearly as I tried to figure out how to get out of there alive and save the recording. If I agree, they can try to remove me right away. And I'll be happy to go. I said I'd love to talk it over with my lawyer. Hey, just a heads up, he should be here in about half an hour. He tried to object, but I gently encouraged him to go along with my idea. I'm sure we can figure out a way to make this transaction make sense, but we'll need to do it together. I would love to sign that document, but I can't sign it without a lawyer. My sweet husband was a bit hesitant, but in the end, he kindly let me out, just asking me not to stay too long. I jumped out, called the security guard right away, and we drove away. I was in the car, and I started the recorder. I was almost out of breath, but I managed to get everything recorded. I'm sure that will give the police a big help. I gave the recording to my lawyer, and we went back to the Ministry of Internal Affairs together. This time, they seemed a bit more serious. It was really easy to hear the husband saying something about people who can do everything clean. I'm so sorry to hear that they had to open a case of attempted death threats. At the same time, they thoughtfully collected information about their mistress. The police suggested doing an undercover operation, but I let them know I'd already given them all the records. I'll do my best to help next time by setting up a meeting where they can catch them red-handed if there are direct threats or transfers of money for my life. It wasn't long before the serious faces were joined by the case. It looks like the mistress might have been under surveillance for quite some time. She was involved in a few things that might have been a bit fishy. She's got friends in the wrong crowd. I really felt like there was a good chance of getting them involved, especially if I helped gather some evidence. I agreed, even though I was trembling with horror. We'll have to reach out and, well, risk being exposed to the blow. I'm so excited for them. If everything goes as planned, they'll be taken. On the day we had all been waiting for, I went to the place we'd agreed on. It was a lovely country mansion that belonged to a friend and mistress. I went there to receive some money. And I'm here for you, too. I'm happy to tell you that there were operatives undercover nearby. I've got a microphone attached to my clothes, and I'm ready to share my voice with the world. I went in, and there was my husband and a woman. She smiled warmly, held out an envelope, and said, "I'm so happy to tell you that this is even more than we promised. Just go away and leave us, or," and I immediately added with a warm smile, "but is the norm, my friend. I'm sure we all want to make it home safely. So let's keep it down if you can." This phrase was all it took. The operatives entered and presented their ID card, and they were greeted with warmth and kindness. The mistress let out a tirade of expletives and hurried over to the bag, where it appeared she had a gun. The husband tried to make a run for it through the back door, but, sadly, he was tied up. I was minding my own business when someone bumped into me. I took a little spill, and ouch, my side really hurt. But here's the good news. I'm alive and kicking. Thankfully, everyone was detained at the end of the day. The police found weapons, and there was even an envelope with money. They also have audio recordings. We've got a lot of evidence that points to a conspiracy to commit murder. As I got up, my mistress's face showed a look of concern. She said that it wasn't enough for her, and that it was my own fault. She said that my husband was a fool for not being able to pull this off without a trace. The husband stood with his head bowed, and he seemed to be trying to call someone. maybe to ask for a lawyer. What came next was like something out of a dream. I was having such a hard time believing that this terrible nightmare was finally coming to an end. A couple of months later, the investigation was moving towards completion, which was great news. I'm so grateful that I was given protection until everything calmed down. I'm happy to share my testimony, the audio recordings, and the evidence we have gathered. This includes that piece of paper from Ku's pocket that the expert examined and confirmed was real, even though it didn't have names on it. Thanks to all of this, we were able to open a criminal case for preparing an attempt. Since then, my husband, who was finally released after the divorce proceedings, and his friend, his mistress, have been in custody awaiting sentencing. I've been dealing with my nerves for quite a while now. I've been seeing a psychologist and doing my best to believe in myself once more. While I was still under protection, my case for dividing property was finally looked at again. This was because some things about the fraud he did came to light. I'm so glad to say that most of my things came back to me. Best of all, it made me feel so good to know the truth could come out in the end. The police confirmed that. Thankfully, I had noticed the note at the right time. Otherwise, the whole story could have ended in tragedy. I'm stepping out of the courthouse one evening, where the criminal case is underway. Glancing at the warm light, I can't help but feel a sense of humor about the journey of life. One little mix-up in the wardrobe, someone else's jacket, a piece of paper in his pocket, and the big truth came out. I can't begin to imagine that someone I once trusted would want me to be dead and sad. I'm doing so much better. I'm not crying anymore. I'm so proud of myself. I did my best to hold on, and I'm happy I didn't give up or let myself be destroyed. I feel the cool, wet stones under my feet as I make my way across the garden. In the distance, I see Veronica waving to me, and it makes me smile. I'm so glad I survived. I'm excited to see how things will be different from here on out. It's always so unfortunate when marriages end, isn't it? I'm so grateful that I found faith in my abilities and people who really support me. After all, the result of this long and crazy story is as follows, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I know it's hard when you feel like you have nothing left but your courage and will to live, but I want you to know that there is always a way out, and if someone tries to wipe you off the face of the earth, you can persevere and turn the tide. I'm so grateful that someone else's jacket ended up saving my life. But you'll be happy to hear that's exactly what happened at the very end of the meeting, when it was announced that her husband and his mistress would be brought to trial under a criminal article. I felt a mountain drop from my soul, and I'm sure you will, too. I'm so happy to tell you that it's almost over now. I'm so happy to say that the taunts and threats have stopped. I give my friend a big hug, and she lets out a soft murmur in response. I'm so happy for you. You really won. And in those seconds, I realized that, despite all their attempts, I'm still alive. It wasn't until the very end of this journey that I found something I couldn't have imagined in a million years. A simple piece of paper revealed the truth. And I, who thought I had lost everything, found myself again, even among the ruins of my former life. But now I have a firm belief in the future.